All right, you're back for more punishment, David. Talks on God.
Or here to torture the three people watching us.
That's right. As a side note, before we talk about self-realization as just a simple topic, right? Uh, what is your intention? Why is this why have you agreed to talk on such things as God, these ununderstandable topics such as love and God?
Okay, so it's an my teacher says it's a natural outflow. I am so grateful to God. I feel like God scooped me out of the river I was drowning in, the river of delusion, and scooped me out and saved me. And I'm just so grateful for that. That from that grateful heart, you just naturally want to offer what you have to others, because so many people are just so unhappy, so much suffering, and it's just completely unnecessary.
Right.
We make ourselves just incredibly miserable, and we blame it on the world.
Oh yes.
So I just want to share what I have, uh, because you don't have to be unhappy. You don't have to be unhappy. You can just have a life that's just incredibly satisfying and joyful. I mean, this is, Baba said, one of the tragedies of the human existence. It's like a man standing in a river of the purest, coolest, cleanest, drinkable water, and he's dying of thirst.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you are bliss itself if you just know how to just reach down, scoop up a little water, and start to drink it. You'll right away start to quench that thirst that's killing you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my motivation. That's why I like doing it on yours, and I don't really want to give people how to get a hold of me.
That's good. Luckily, luckily no one watches, so we're both
Yeah,
safe.
nobody watches, so nobody cares anyway. So I'm not in any real danger of being famous.
That's right. But if I do get tortured, I will totally give you up.
I no, I'm assuming that, but so I'll forgive you ahead of time.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll be putting all of my mixed martial arts training.
Oh God.
As long as a toddler attacks me, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Well, let's talk about self-realization. My question for you about self-realization is what does that even mean, self-realization? And then what's the benefit of it? What's it mean? What's the benefit? And then lastly, how would you even go to such a thing that is completely past our perception? Which might be a part of your answer, but
Yeah. Well, I'm always tempted to start my answers by saying, "Well, how would I know any of that?"
good
But I
start.
resist the urge, because everybody hears it every time. It's like that joke gets really old. So self-realization is starting to become aware who you are, which is a piece of God, right? And that's a pretty cool thing when you begin to not intellectualize it, like, oh yeah, I'm so amazing, I'm great. Not intellectualizing, but begin to feel that divinity within you.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that's your nature. That's because I remember my teacher, he would always say, he goes, I'm God. He goes, but so are you. The only difference between me and you is I'm fully aware of it. You are not. So I used to think he was just being sweet. When I'd say you, not me personally, but just all humanity, all people. So I used to think that's so sweet to say that, but we both know that's not true. I know what God should roughly be. I'm not even close to that. So, but
Mm-hmm.
that's nice to say. But as I begin to do the practices, I begin to realize that there was a spark of divinity within me. And
Mm-hmm.
as I began to uh, work on bringing that little spark into a little flame, and then a little flame into more of a bigger flame. I can't say I'm a bonfire of divinity yet, but I'm making the fire a little bigger every day. So as I started to experience that, it's like, holy smoke, I guess he wasn't just trying to be sweet. That actually he meant it. right? So
Mm.
so that's it. It's self-realization when you begin to experience at least some of your own divinity. That's self-realization, and I think it just fixes a lot of psychological problems we have as human beings. My teacher had said the first sin was also the original sin is also still the greatest sin, which is to feel unworthy of God. And I think when you begin to awaken to the divinity that lays within you, then I think that feeling of being unworthy of God, of God's love, begins to diminish, begins to disappear. And so I guess you could say that's another way of saying you begin to love yourself. And that's really the foundation of loving others. If you don't love yourself, I don't think you can love others. You can be subservient to others, but that's not love, right? You can put others ahead of you, but I think that's not really even love either. I think real love comes from tapping into your own divinity and supporting the divinity of others, which means sometimes you got to kick their butt for when they're moving in the opposite direction. You don't just cave into every negative impulse people want to put in your direction, because that's not good for them.
Yeah.
So
Well, like, and who is you? You say love yourself as the foundation of loving others. Who is the you you're talking about? Who's the you self? Like your issue with I am God was so difficult for you, said in the past, but then to remember there is no David was really helpful in that.
no,
Would
it
you say
was.
that
It
plays in
was.
that love yourself as the foundation for loving others?
Yeah. So I think, and it's almost a type of forgiveness in that you realize that what you thought was you, that's less than perfect, is actually not really a real part of you. It's just a temporary misunderstanding, a temporary glitch in the programming, right? So when you see all your mistakes and your sins as you, then of course, how could you be God, and how can you forgive yourself? Whereas when you begin to see all that is just another unreal illusion, then it's almost like there's nothing to forgive yourself for. You realize that that's just part of the illusion of feeling separate from God. And then you start diving deeper into yourself. And when you begin to get glimpses of divinity within yourself, you realize that's the real you. All the rest is just like mud on a giant, gorgeous, perfect diamond. You could say, well, it's just a big clump of mud. Or you could say, no, that's just some mud on top of the diamond. So just wash it off, and there's the perfect diamond. So I kind of look at us like that. You're a perfect, indestructible diamond, because you're a piece of God that can't be altered. But you can sure cover it with a lot of dirt and mud and whatever your dirt of choice is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that you cannot change your true nature. That's indestructible. It's immortal, immutable. The worst god awful demon, whatever, however you can look at what you think is the worst thing, still at its base core is a piece of God, which is unchangeable. So eventually, that's the only thing that will continue forever.
Mm-hmm.
All the mud and the dirt and whatever you've covered your perfect diamond with is not immortal. Eventually you'll wash that off, and you'll awaken to the fact that you've always been a piece of God.
On all these mystics, they've always said something similar of that, which is that which changes and that which ends is not reality, not ultimate reality. The truth is never untrue. and that which is never was not, or never was born and died. And so
That's right.
that part of me, like you said, I'm not David. Well, I'm God doesn't feel like, well, I don't know. I could say it doesn't really feel like it, but the challenge is I'm thinking of this idea of me
Right.
that I've made up. Like you said, the mud on the diamond. Well, the mud on the diamond isn't the diamond.
That's right.
I've made that layer.
That's right. And it's
Uh,
and if you take my teacher's description of real, he said by God's definition, the only thing that is real is that which has always been real and always will be real. And the only thing that's true is that which has always been true and always will be true. So that basically, it narrows it down to one thing, which is I am. I am, and the I am that I am is what we refer to as God. That's the only thing real about me and the only thing true about me. Everything else has come into being and will at some point cease to exist.
yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of it, is you begin to realize that. So I think you start becoming a lot more forgiving of yourself and others, because you can begin to, with your vision, so by vision, I mean your insight, your wisdom, you begin to realize that the only thing real about me and the only thing real about you is that you're a piece of God. So all the rest is temporary. It's the play, it's the adventure, it's the movie, it's the storyline, and all that can change and continue to change forever, but who you are will never change.
Yeah.
So
There's a quote from A Course in Miracles, and it's Jesus talking. He says, there's nothing, and Jesus said, there's nothing about me that you cannot attain. I have nothing that does not come from God. But the only difference between us right now is I have nothing else. And so it's like all this other stuff that I have along with God is what makes me the mud on the diamond, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'd go even deeper than that. I'd say that I have nothing else, indicating we have everything else, a lot else. But I would say, in reality, what we believe is a lot else is just another illusion. You don't have anything else either. You have belief that you have something else.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's a matter of clearing your understanding, clearing your understanding of who you are. So it's all your misunderstandings that appear to give you the something else, but in reality, that's just another illusion. So I'm saying liberation can take a billion lifetimes, or it can take a moment, because if you're a piece of God, how can God not be liberated already? God doesn't need to be liberated, but as you believe yourself not to be, you're experiencing that you are not. But that's just an illusion. It's a dream. I could say almost a nightmare you're having, that you are not. But the truth is, you can awaken in a moment to the fact that you are, and everything else is an illusion. All your sins, all your mistakes, all the things you don't like about yourself or others, it's not really real. The more you believe it, the more you energize it, and then you experience it. Right? So this is Baba's method, as opposed to all the methods I've used before. Like I said before, I was on the spiritual path, which means I'm not where I should be. I need to get somewhere down the road. How far down the road, I don't know. Actually, where it is, not sure, but I know I'm not. So I'm just stumbling down the road. Well, that in itself is another illusion. And you can be on that road for a billion lifetimes. So to me, liberation is when you realize there's no place you got to go. It's not a road you're on. You're in your bed having a dream. Just wake up. You're just having a nightmare of all this. It's a nightmare. Just as you start waking up, you realize there's no place you had to go. You've always been safe in your bed.
Yeah.
And you safe in bed as a piece of God, that this was just a dream you're having. I guess for the entertainment value, if nothing else, you know.
So what's the process? How do you
Well, do we
wake up?
have enough time left for it? My God, you ate into most of my time to
I know. Well,
drive it.
I need the complete how-to of realization in 5 minutes.
All right, we'll go through it really fast. So my teacher, he gives a little, I don't know how you describe it, a little. He goes, all right. He goes, here's how you build the house of self-realization. He said, you start with the foundation of self-confidence. You build the walls of self-satisfaction, and then you put on the roof of self-sacrifice. Okay, so we'll talk next week.
That's it for today.
That's it.
Foundation of self-confidence, the walls of
self-satisfaction, and the roof of self-sacrifice. So he never really explained it. So I struggled with that one for a long time until I finally solved that riddle. So the key of solving the riddle is the self-confidence. It's capital S.
Mm-hmm.
Self-satisfaction is capital S. Self-sacrifice is small s. All right, now do you understand it?
Yeah.
So the foundation of self-confidence is as you begin to turn within and begin to know that small voice within you, the promptings of your heart and your conscience, is the voice of God within you. And you start to develop confidence in that. As you begin to now listen to the promptings of God within you, you begin to find, you know what, I'm tapping into something pretty powerful. And everybody hears it. It's like that little voice that, Juban, don't do it. And you go, screw you, I want to do it. And you do it, and it's a disaster.
You've been watching me, I see.
I've been watching myself, right? So everybody in the whole world has experienced that. Because I ask people, I said, have you ever had a little voice inside you said, don't do it? They go, yeah. And I went all over the world asking this, right? I go, will you ever do it anyway? And everyone goes, yeah. I go, how'd it turn out? Always bad. Always turns out bad. So what the heck is that little voice that's right all the time? It's the voice of God within you, right? So in my little pamphlet that I call a book that I sell on Amazon, right? It's look, I got off track right there. So everybody says yes. Oh, that's it. So why doesn't everybody recognize that as the voice of God? Because it's just so small and humble that that's not what we're expecting when we think God is going to speak to us. We're thinking the clouds part, lightning comes down, and you get the booming voice of God that, David, don't do it. So we're expecting something majestic and huge and overwhelming, when that's not really God's style. God's style is he whispers in your heart. He doesn't want to violate your free will, but he'll whisper, man, don't do it. And of course, if you don't recognize that as God, we say, screw you, I'm doing it. You do it, and it's a disaster, right? So that's it. When you begin to recognize the promptings of your heart and your consciousness is the voice of God within you, and begin to listen to it, you begin to find, wow, this is pretty powerful. And you start developing confidence that God actually speaks to you, right? So that confidence that the self, your true self, is God. That's the foundation. Now, once you begin to start developing confidence that promptings within you is God, now you work on the walls, which is self-satisfaction. I could put you on the spot and ask you what that means, but I'm not.
I appreciate that.
I had a couple of years to figure it out. So self-satisfaction, now another term for self-satisfaction is righteousness. What true righteousness is, now when you feel the promptings of God within you, you do it, right? So when you act from the promptings of God within you, you begin to satisfy divinity that lives within you. So you start building the walls of self-satisfaction. You act from the promptings of God within you and feel that satisfaction when you're pleasing divinity within you. So that's now you got your foundation of self-confidence. You've developed that confidence that yes, indeed, you do hear God, and he's willing to guide you and guard you when you listen to it. Now you begin to act from that prompting, which is dharma or righteousness, or another way of experiencing it is you begin to satisfy the promptings of divinity within you. And it's very satisfying when you begin to act from that promptings of God within you. Unless it costs you a lot of time and money, then you might be a little unhappy. Get over it. Because the joy you feel, right, from that. Now, that's the two that you got, the walls and the foundation. Now, self-sacrifice, small s. So that means you start to sacrifice your small self. So that's when righteousness or God within you prompts you to do something that you don't really have the time or the money or the inclination, but you sacrifice your maybe some money, or maybe sacrifice your time, or sacrifice your own inclinations. Yeah. So I'll just give you a little story. I try to, when I'm working as a chiropractor, I try to listen to God while I'm doing it, right? And so a lot of times it's like I'm prompted to check something, and it's like, I don't have the time. I got 5 people in the waiting room. So it's like I start moving past it, and I start making excuses like, no, I'll get it next time. But I feel it in my heart. It's like God saying, go back and check that or do that thing. And so I do it, right? So that's self-sacrifice, but I'm sacrificing my small self, my desires and attitudes of David, sacrifice that, right? So there was this one patient the other day, and I hadn't seen him in about a year. And God's telling me, give her a reduced fee. I'm going, nah, I don't think I'm hearing that. I'm saying, give her a reduced fee. Now, normally I get, the patient will give me a clue like, yeah, no, the reason I haven't come in is because I just, finances have been tough. And then it's like, it's obvious to me that God is telling me, give him a reduced fee. But I was not getting any of that. So I'm fighting with God over this. Like, they didn't say that they're having a hard time. It's probably just, I'm thinking maybe they're just lazy. They didn't come in, And so I kept feeling it so strong. And it's like, okay. And I tell them, I go, okay, you know what? Let me reduce your fee here for you. And they go, oh, thank you so much. I've been really having a hard time. Then I felt like such a heel.
Yeah.
Their pride didn't want to have them say anything, I mean, that's that who wants to tell the doctor, I don't really have any money. I mean, that's not a pleasant thing to have to say. So God was trying to spare this poor person from having to beg, right? So, but I fought on it. Finally, I go, okay. But that's small self-sacrifice, small self, sacrificing your attachments. I wanted to charge full fee. So, but I mean, that's when you do sacrifice yourself. And I think that small self-sacrifice is probably an ongoing process. It is for me, that you'll feel the promptings of God within you to whatever, it could be, that old lady next door, he might be saying, go mow her lawn, and you're going, she doesn't need me to mow her lawn, and it's hot out. And, it's like, fine. And then when you go and knock on her door and just say, Mrs. Jones, I'd like to mow your lawn today. Oh, honey, thank you so much. I was so worried about it, and I don't have it. It's like, then you feel like a heel for fighting with God over it, So I mean, but that's the roof. You don't put the roof on, the rain's coming in and your house and everything in it's going to get all wet. That's the roof. And for me, it's just an ongoing process. It gets a little easier. Sometimes it's real easy, but other times you're going to be struggling with God. It's like, or you know, or maybe it's not even you're arguing with God. You're just going la 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 la. No, no, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that. La 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 la. Right. So this is where my teacher says, don't play false with God. Don't play false with God. I mean, you can if you want, but you'll never start achieving deeper levels of awareness of divinity if you play false with God when it's inconvenient. Baba would always say, he says, spirituality without sacrifice is worthless. It's worthless. And, you know, you see a lot of that today. People like to imagine themselves spiritual and they're doing their om and chanting and sitting cross-legged and whatever they're doing, but yet they haven't given up any of their selfishness at all. So it's what you got is it's worthless. It's worthless. It's worthless. It will require sacrifice. And usually it's really inconvenient. You don't want to do it. Yeah. There's a couple I really choked on, man. But when I did it, I felt the joy. I knew it was right, you know. So that's how you. So you could say you put that roof on, but you got to probably reshingle fairly regularly. Keep checking that roof that it's not getting a bunch of holes in it. But that's it. That's the process. And when you do those, you truly begin to feel your divinity. You begin to experience God within you more and more, and begin to see Him everywhere. So it's a good simple, like heart, head, hands. It's a good simple way to remember how to operate the vehicle you're in. So this is, I don't know what you'd call it. It's an analogy. It's not an analogy, but it's just a little simple instruction manual, how to build the house of self-realization, and that's it. So it requires a little bit of maintenance, but it's well worth it. It's well worth it.
Well, that's good. Well, we're at the end of our timing constraints.
Did we nail it?
We did.
Yeah, look at that. Thank you, God.
Yeah, I know, it's incredible. You got it all in. Thank God.
Thank you, God. Right.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you always being willing to share. And you know, this is a wonderful experiment, and just trying things on
well, so I feel I've you know what, I talked to you before we started this. I've been really feeling the promptings of God to do this. So, you know, it's not that not gonna change the whole world, but I can change the whole world for one person, you know. And if one person, it helps them navigate these difficult times and help their life be more joyful, then it's worth the time. It's worth the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thank you.